Good day, my name is Erich Schoeman. I'm a clinical psychologist. It's very nice to spend time with you. Today I'm going to talk to you about establishing trust with your teenager, learning how to speak Teenglish. Well, it's almost like English, but it isn't English. It is also not Spanglish. It's Teenglish. It is a different species that we are talking to, and it's a different species that we're going to uh, learn to talk to, and so that you can start to understand how to build a relationship with your teenager. Now, something personal from my life: I'm married with two children. So my wife, Elsie, and the children, Amelia, she's 15, and Benjamin, 12 years old. So I'm right in the middle of teenage years, and we're having a lot of fun, but yet we are also experiencing some hard times. So during this talk, I'm going to share with you some of our experiences, but also some of the basic principles on how to build trust with your teenager. Now, I think the first question is, why do we have to build trust with a teenager? Now, I'm going to give you some things that you already know. So I think today's talk will probably highlight a whole lot of the things that you already know. And I hope that it clarifies and brings some things into perspective. Now, you know your child is growing up, and it is a constant process of becoming more and more independent. And they are starting to question things, and they are becoming their own person. So your role as a parent is to assist them to become an effective and godly person that lives life with passion and purpose, and that has a responsibility, but is also maturity. So it's a whole lot. I mean, we can't really take all of that onto ourselves, but we try our best. Now, as a Christian, I'm aware of the fact that I'm called by my Heavenly Father to I'm like a manager of somebody that he loves. So I'm a parent, but I'm actually there to also model his parenting and to also connect them with him as the heavenly parent, the heavenly Father. So that will obviously necessitate a relationship with him. So first of all, building trust with your teenager starts with how your relationship with your Heavenly Father is. Whether you've got a relationship where you experience love, kindness, forgiveness, where you experience His presence, His assistance, His help, His understanding, and His discipline, His honesty, and His teaching, and His comfort, and His guidance. So that is a pivotal, because it forms you as a person. It's a solid, strong relationship that covers you and that guides you. Now, obviously, in that relationship, there's also a whole lot of wisdom to be found. So you're not on your own. And I gather a lot from my relationship with the Heavenly Father through Jesus Christ. And I use that relationship to also gain an understanding of how to treat my teenagers. Now, for myself, I've been aware of building a relationship with my children from before they were born. So I've tried to be involved with their nurturing and with their caring, and waking up at night, changing nappies, giving the bottles, doing all those things, helping with all of that, so that because being involved in their nurturing is also building a relationship. So it's been a long process of being involved in their lives, and in their caring and caring for them. Now, there are a few problems that people experience with teenagers, and that usually leads them to listen to a talk like this. And then some of the problems might be, my teen and I, we're not talking, or we're constantly quarreling, or my teenager is experimenting in risky behaviors, whether it be sexual behaviors or drugs or any of those things, or they're aggressive. They're not they don't want to listen to me. They're just out there. So it's a whole lot of intense fights, I know, that can happen with a teenager. So and those things lead you to a place where you say, geez, I don't really know how to build a relationship with my teenager. Now, if you're in the crisis place where the relationship is really at a low point, then obviously it's going to be a process to build that relationship and to rebuild it. First of all, during this talk, we're going to have a look at the benefits of building a relationship with your teenager, and when trust is broken. And then we'll have a look at how you do that. So I'll give you some communication ideas, and I've got a number of them, and then just share some practical things from what I've also learned and from what I've seen in relationship to my own teenager and in my clinical practice. So even today, as I'm recording this, I spent time with a teenager who is in distress. So teenagers, let me just give you some brief background on them. Neurologically speaking, they're still in development. Their brain develops, so the prefrontal cortex, that's as part of my beautiful forehead, develops during the latter years of their teenage years, and that's the executive decision-making capability, the reasoning, the seeing the consequences of behavior, making decisions with short and long-term goals in mind and the consequences in mind. So all of that develops, and they're still in the thick of developing it. And then they've got this whole hormonal surge and of changes in their body, changes in their mind and in their hearts, and so it's a whole lot of things, and they feel a lot of intense emotions, and they are in a constant process of adapting to and finding themselves. They're also in a stage of developing their identity. So a teenager, as you know, is as the group pressure element. So that just means that they find their identity in the peers' acceptance and what the peers think of them and how they relate to the peers and whether they are in or out. So it's important for them to find that acknowledgement, and they suddenly, some of them have a lot of insecurity, or they are the leaders in the group, and they say, no, this is how it's going to be done, not necessarily always on par or with the correct way. But in any case, so that's the thing. They're in the middle of a huge change process. And I mean, you've been there, I've been there. Your arms are longer than what you want. Your feet grow out from under, and you look all disfigured, you look strange and imbalanced. So why is that building trust important? Because if you have a trust relationship with your teenager, you have closeness. You can walk with them through those stages, and it becomes a healthy relationship that goes on into adulthood. So I'm building this relationship with my daughter and my son because I'm thinking about 10 years, 20 years time. I also want to be in their lives. And I want to, when I have trust, then I also have the ability to speak into their lives. So that means what I say will also probably be heard by them. Not everything all the time. I've seen that, but the important things, and that if I have trust, then I can be there for them, and they will then open up to me. Usually, if they have problems, they'll come to me. I've said in my clinical practice I've sat with parents whose children were doing drugs, been in contact with the police and correctional services. So I've sat with parents who were really, at the end and not knowing what to do. I've said to them that the key place here is to start building that relationship again. But if you have that relationship and you start to listen to each other and you can talk, it actually develops a friendship later on as well. But during the teenage years, you will have the greatest say. Your words will weigh a lot. And the idea is here so that when they grow up and they become more independent, that you will be able to help them to manage that independence. And if you have trust, then mostly you have respect. And that's something that people say, my teenager does not respect me. It's just so terrible, they don't respect me at all. Why don't they respect me? They're just so aggressive. And the idea here is that even if they're there, then you know that there's unfinished business in the relationship. So the relationship has probably a trust break. And there's something that's happened in that relationship that's hurt her or him, and that they are also acting against it. Now, I'm not saying they're not in sin. They also need to deal with sin. They also need to deal with bad attitudes and immaturity and grow out of those and it's true. But what we as parents tend to do is we tend to say, look, we need to train you up, we need to discipline you, but we sometimes forget to say that is based on a relationship with you. That's based on a trusted relationship. Okay, so if you have the trust, then you have a lot more security as well, that you can see these children through these years. Another benefit is that your teenager will display affection towards you, and you will be able to do the same, and there will be a positivity around them. Now, if they break your trust, what do you do when they break your trust? I mean, if they break your trust, then that means somewhere in this passage or in this growth process, as they are continually experiencing more freedom and more responsibility, that somewhere there they have made a mistake. And they've probably broken that word. They have broken. So what then needs to happen is that there needs to be a conversation about consequences. So I'm going to talk about how to talk to your teenager. I think I'm writing a book. It's in the How Mastering the Art of Interacting with People. And in that book, I'm trying to say, it's not always what you say, it is what you say, but it is also how you say it. Now, it's the same with teenagers. It is how you interact with them. It is all of it is in the how. Now, this does not mean you will be able to control your teenager like with a remote, but at least you'll be involved, you'll be there, and you'll have trust in you, and you can talk to them. But let's start off and see, but how do I really build that relationship with my teenager? The first thing that I think it's important is that you remember that you are the model of the behavior that you want. So your teenager, they're going to model on you. And they've been doing that since birth. So they're a little zebra, you're the mama, and they're just imprinting on you. So what you're doing, they're going to do. I remember saying to my daughter, don't do what I'm doing, do what I'm saying. So that's hypocritical. So I can't do that. So the idea here is, if you don't have communication skills yourself, and if your own marital relationship suffers because of that and other relationships, then it is not fair to expect your teenager to now be this respectful, a person that really just does what they're told to do and talk in such a nice way. No, you need to actually develop your communication skills. It is worth it. It is really worth it. I used to be an introvert that didn't talk much, and I am clearly not an introvert anymore. So I've grown in the skills of communication. I'm probably still introverted in my inclination to spend time on my own, but I do not have that barrier to communication. I don't find communication difficult anymore, and it was a learning process. So first of all, you're the role model. You need to learn the skills, and it is worth it to invest. And obviously you're listening to this program, so you are doing this. So yeah. Okay, so it is how you talk, and it is then getting yourself to also to say, okay, where do I need to change the way I'm talking? So first of all, what I found is we say they don't have respect for us. And what's important here is to model respect. So I found that if you can, from your side, say, listen, we make a few rules in the way that we are going to talk to each other. So the first rule is that we're not going to scream. We can't go into anger. I say you need to be calm, not chaotic. So it needs to be a calm environment where even when you are frustrated and angry, you can voice that you do feel that, and you will probably look a bit angry. And when I'm really angry, I'm not so it is, you do show your anger, but it is also about not losing it. If you're losing it, you need to know that you've built up frustration and anger, and this is now the last straw. You've probably acted too late. You should have acted earlier on already. So the idea is to calm yourself down, to talk. When you have interaction with your teenager, especially about conflict, you need to calm down, and then you need to sit and say, okay, let me realize that this is a semi-independent, semi-adult person. I need to display adult relationship skills with him, so that it is we are going to play tennis. The ball's going to go both ways. We're going to listen and talk, and we're not going to play golf. I'm going to sit there and preach to my child and they just have to listen. So it's about meeting them, loving them. Even if you are very upset, if you feel very upset, you feel very disappointed, it is okay that you have those feelings. It's just about calming down before you go and talk to them. So when you do talk to them, it is about hearing as well. You can say what you are frustrated about and what you are upset about, and then hearing their side of the story. And if they are very defensive and arrogant, and that already means that there's some unfinished business between the two of you. So we first need to deal with that then. You can't just skip it and say, listen, shut up and do what I'm saying. That's a military relationship, and you're then going to get a military hoo-ha. It's going to be distant and cold, and it's not going to be a warm relationship where you understand each other. So the idea here is to then sit and talk about things that have hurt them before. And I have found that acknowledging your own mistakes are key. So if you can say that you are sorry, you can apologize. That's a huge thing. So you need to apologize, not defend, and or preach to them. So I've found that I need to apologize. And then when I do talk to them, I need to explain why I am upset and what it is that I want from them, what it is that I want from him, and why do I want this? Why do I see it this way? I always explain it as to you open up a file in their minds. It is as if you're opening a file in a certain area, let's say technology, because we all have fights with our teenagers about technology. So you're opening the file. So I want them to have critical thinking skills, but that is something that develops later on in life. But at least I'm sowing the seeds now for them to start to critically think about their use of technology, all the dangers involved in it. So what I've typically done is I've sat and watched videos with her on social media dangers and with our children, and then sat and had discussions about this. Initially, I would say, no of this, none of that, and I would just barge down on them and just, no, that's not going to work, because that just does it. It elicits this resistance, and they just resist you, because now they're saying, I'm a different person from you. It is separation, individuation that has happened. I'm not the same person as you anymore. I don't acknowledge that, and I don't, if they feel you're being unfair or they're going to resist it. It's a natural process for them to resist you, because they actually need to. They need to separate from you and individuate. But it does not have to be a huge fight all the time. A separation, individuation can be a process that happens without all of this conflict. So it's about finding the way that you click with them, the way that you laugh and you have jokes. I laugh and I have jokes all the time. But okay, let me come back to some other pointers. So it is, you need to explain what you feel and not go into blame and attack mode, even though you feel a lot of frustration. If you have too much frustration, don't go there. Then don't talk, rather not do it now. Go and see someone if you need to get rid of that and get a different perspective and guidance. Because if you mess it up, it's going to have consequences. So this is the unfortunate thing, is that things that we messed up 5-10 years ago have consequences. Many times people say teenage years are payback time for mistakes made earlier on. It's not necessarily always the case, but sometimes, yeah, it is old resentments that come in, old pain, and you first need to then prove yourself in a sense. Okay, so the teenager is here. You want to build a relationship with them. You want to build their trust. So time is one thing that you need to do, and that's spend time with them. Not just do the things that you want, but also the things that they want. So what I do is I say, I would like to go and hike with you. I said that to my son. I'd like to go and hike with you. What would you like to do with me? Now he'd like to do artwork with me. We sit and we do art together. Or we go and play Minecraft together. So he involves me in his world, and I involve him in my world. And it's about getting that balance. And then it's about finding your son or daughter where they're at as well. So even if they messed up and they broke the trust, you need to go there, find out where they're at, listen to them, explain to them your heart in a calm way. And then another thing that you need to do is you need to talk about impact that they've done, the impact of what they've done, the consequences of it. It's not about threatening them and punishing them. It's about giving consequences. So meaning if I walk into a wall and I hit my head, that's going to be very hurtful. So I need to understand the consequences. So I talk to them about, and I use Socratic questioning. That is a form of questioning where you ask questions, and in the question, it elicits thinking. So I would say, if you do this kind of thing, what would be the effect on somebody else? How do you think she would feel, or how would you feel if she said something like that to you? What do you think that meant? Why would that hurt you? How would you like to then react back? So things that they have done. But if you want to give your child feedback and negative feedback, constructive criticism, it cannot really happen without that base of relationship. So it is, I'm interested in you, I love you, I care about you, I want to spend time with you. I care enough to also say I'm sorry. I care enough to come to you and to make time for you, to keep my promises to you, to not break my promises over and over. Now, sometimes we do break our promises. I mean, I told my daughter, she's very set, if you promise something, you got to do it. So I said, I explained to her why I couldn't do this. I understand her disappointment, and then I make another date with her. So it is important to come onto that level and to try to be reasonable. One thing that we do with couples is I do check-ins, and I teach couples how to do check-ins with themselves. But what we do in our house is we do check-ins. So we check in with each other. So it's different from a check-up. So some parents have a checking up approach. So I'm going to check up on you and, are you doing things right? Or are you doing things wrong? A checking in is a concern. I'm concerned about you. I love you. How are you doing? How's your day been? So, and it's not swamping them and telling them you must talk to me now. It's about spending a bit more than a natural time with them. Because you love your child, and that's why you're listening to the program, because you really want to get through to them, and you really want to build trust. Now, if your teenager does not want to talk to you, there might be a number of reasons that they don't want to talk to you. So one of the reasons is that you've probably hurt them before. You might have judged them or blamed them for something that they felt they didn't do. And now they're rather withdrawing and keeping the things to themselves. They might be upset and angry at you for something you've done. And so they're keeping a distance from you, so feeling safer. They might be punishing you with some passive aggressiveness, feeling upset. So the idea there is, again, to go and check in with them. I can see that you are quiet. What is it that is bothering you? I'd like to hear from you, and I'd like to spend time with you. Now, for you to build the relationship, I usually use this acronym, and I say triple F. You need to be firm, friendly, and fair. If you're building trust with a teenager and you're not fair, they're going to tell you about it, and you're going to lose their trust in your integrity. And because if you're not fair, then that builds a lot of resentment with them. If you're not friendly, if you're not respectful and in the way that you deal with them, then they feel they don't have to be respectful back to you. And in essence, that is true. I know God wants the children to be respectful to their parents, but he also wants the parents not to unnecessarily hurt and frustrate their children. And if you can be firm, not harsh. Firm just means you stick to the boundaries that you've said you're going to stick to. So you have those boundaries, and I have two main areas where we have strict boundaries. That's on health and safety. So health and safety are the two ones where I'm not going to compromise, and on areas where I want to build a relationship with them. So the time around the table at night. So I'm not going to compromise. Some evenings I do compromise on it, but at least 3 times or 4 times a week, it'd be lovely if we can sit together. And even if it's just for a short period of time, so that we can check in. How's your day been? A friend of mine has a nice book, Ons Huisgeloof, so you can have a look at Erich book on how to build trust and values with your children. So it's a nice way when you're around the dinner table is to check in. What's your highs of the day? What's your lows? And you also share honestly with them. And sometimes you also need to open up your own heart. So if your child withdraws from you, you need to go and check in and find out what's going on. And that, when you check in, you want to do three things. You want to be genuine. You want to be authentic. You don't want to come there with, you're right and they're wrong, and you preach to them. No, you're a human, and you've also been through troubles. You want to go and understand where they're coming from before you fix it. So listen before you fix. And then also give them unconditional acceptance. That means I'm not going to judge you and blame you, but I'm going to describe to you what I've heard, and I'm going to tell you if something has been done wrong. Judging means labeling something. So it means I'm saying this is bad or good. We're not going to go into their character. If you want your child to confess their sins, to repent of them, and to ask for forgiveness, then that's something that you need to do as well, because that builds a reconciliation and trust. So for you to be empathic and understanding of their feelings is crucial for them to trust you. So when I would go and sit and talk to my daughter. If something bothered me and I was really angry at her, I've had times where I would explode as well and say, rah, but go and overdrive and give the strongest intervention. That doesn't help. It just elicits the same. So then I need to calm down, and that's when my wife comes in to say, listen, Erich, calm down, take time out. And she takes a time out, and then I approach her and I say, you know what? I understand that this happened, and I can hear that this happened, and I'd like to talk to you about it. So then I listen to her share in the story and what she said and what's bothering her, and then I share with her what's bothered me about what she's done. So it's not about the character, it's not about the person, it's about what she's done. Yes, it involves the character and it involves their values, and we talk about that as well, but I'm not hammering down on her as a person that she's a bad son or daughter. So I'm talking about what they've done and why it frustrated me. What is the dilemma? What was the effect of what they've done? And then, in that conversation, I express to them, actually, firstly, I say, look, I love you, I care about you, and I'm sorry that I exploded this way. I'd like to resolve this with you, and I'd like to ask you if we can talk about this. So if she's also calm, then we say, okay, let's go and talk about it. Sometimes we go and sit on the stoop, the veranda, and we have a discussion. I say, okay, I want to hear what you have to say. And then I hear her out and I listen to her and I reflect back on that. What is it that I've heard? We use a term called summarizing. So when I summarize, like, I've heard you say this and this and that. Now, usually I've already apologized because I acknowledge my mistake, but I need to hear how it's affected her. And then she also needs to do the same, to hear me out and to hear how her behavior has affected me and why I am concerned. And then I express my love to them and why, so that makes it clear to her why I'm saying this, what is my intention. I love you, I care for you, but if you're going to spend a lot of time on your technology and I call you for dinner or whatever and it doesn't happen, then that is very frustrating, because it means you're placing a higher priority on your technology. Now, this is just a simple example. I know teenagers get they get into more trouble than this, but it is about the how. It's about explaining that and then explaining the effect on me and the rest of the family and on her and on my wish for something else. So what I then say is, then I ask her, because she's now a teenager, I ask her to give me some suggestions on how she would like to handle this. And I tell her what I feel is reasonable for a boundary. And if there's a consequence that's needed, usually if it's a severe, the consequences are related to the offense. If the consequence is needed, then I talk about it. Why is a consequence needed? Why do we need to do this? How does life work? If you drive 140 kilometers an hour on the highway here in South Africa, you get a speeding ticket. Some people bribe the speed cops, the traffic officials. Don't do that, It's like your teenager trying to bribe you. It's not going to work. So what you then do is you talk about the reason for that, and then what would be reasonable. And sometimes I found that they give actually a more, a more intense punishment or consequence than I would have suggested. But if it's too light, then I say, look, is that really a reasonable consequence, and why do you think? So I try to discuss it with her instead of just laying down the law and coming in with a whole lot of anger and just punishment, because it's about developing how they think. Why? Because in a few years' time, they've got to be out there and think about problems and consequences and behavior. So every mistake or problem that is there is an opportunity for you to actually teach. So what I've heard from other great talks is that you put on your coaching hat. So parenting is about coaching. It sounds easy, and I know I lose my cool sometimes as well, but then you use that as an opportunity to show them. Confession, you confess your sins like you do with the Lord. You repent, meaning you change your mind. You go back to the truth. You say, I'm sorry. And you acknowledge how you should have done it, and you model it then. And then you forgive. You also ask for forgiveness. So it's about humbling yourself sometimes. Now, if your teenager continues to show no remorse and there's no worries about that, or they become self-harming, then get professional help, because I found that then there might be way more hurts and identity problems and family problems involved. Now, to link with that, a teenager functions within a system. The systems theory tells us that they are part of the system. They are not the whole system. So they are also acting in a way that the whole system is acting. So we're not just looking at an individual, we're looking at a system. So that's why you need to take your role into account as parents, in how the child is behaving. They're not robots. They're not just doing how you program them. They have wills of their own and identities, but the way that the system handles problems, conflict, is respect and norm in the system. Do you respect each other? Do you communicate respectfully? Do you deal with problems and talk it through and really resolve it? Or do you become nasty and passive aggressive and punish each other and reject each other? If those things happen, then you can't expect the teenager not to do it. So it's about dealing with the marital problems as well, and then building that relationship. Now, another thing with relationships is with how you talk with your teenager. It's understanding, not preaching. I say explaining, not preaching. So I've said why that is. So it's about talking to your teenager about life and about the dangers out there. And I've even with our teenager, I've said, okay, you can be on these groups. I'd like to see what's going on, and you handle it then. So the trust is given, and then we'll have a look at how and discuss how she's handling those things, and how are you handling these inappropriate behaviors? What are you doing? So it's an openness and a trust that's between us. And then there's that encouragement. I've heard encouragement is the manure for the soul. So it's about encouraging each other and building each other up. And the teenager can be that person that you just catch them doing something bad all the time. So you need to try to catch them doing something good. And when you do see them doing something good, or they are putting in effort, not outcome, it's not the outcome that matters, it's the effort, then you reward them with that, with a casual compliment of, hey, thanks for doing that. I appreciate that. Great. You've helped your mother a lot tonight, and that was wonderful. Commenting on where they've shown compassion. So what you're doing is you're strengthening that part of their behavior and their belief in their heart. So it's about loving them and helping them and meeting them where they are at. And then what I found is I've also found to make my teenagers feel special is one-on-one time with them. And I've set things that they enjoy and that I enjoy, but also special times. So I take my teenage daughter on dates, and I bought her a ring recently, and I'm going to give it to her soon. And it's also a ring where I'm going to have a significant message with that ring, not to burden her, but to bless her, to make her feel special. So it's about how I impact her, how I impact on her. Well, how do I make her feel? And then there's interest in her life. If you are not interested in your child, in what they want, and how they feel, and what they like and dislike, if you just live past them, then you're not going to have a relationship with them. Now, I know the culture can be, oh, you just need your teenagers need to be little gods, and oh, worship them. Now it's so you're obviously not going to. They also have to pull their weight. They also have to change their attitudes. But it's how we discuss it with them. So we keep it respectful. We keep it calm. We say keep your tone of voice calm, not angry, not whining. So if they also come in a whiny voice, you say, I'd like to listen to you, but it's a whiny voice. And if they run out and they shout and they slam the door, what that then just means is there's been a whole lot of a slip, like a slippery slope. So you need to go back. There's a whole lot of work again to do on finishing the unfinished business. Now, let's say there is unfinished business in the relationship. There was a divorce, and you're a single mother. You're living with your children. Father is out of the house. I mean, it's a broken home. So trying to establish trust with your teenager is a bit more difficult, because being a parental couple, it's just a stronger force. Because you can take turns, and there's a male figure as well to take some of the disciplining role. I've just seen that no matter what culture says, the male has a place there. And it's important that you're now in a difficult situation and there's unfinished business. So we want to empathically look at their hearts, and then also share our hearts sincerely, not in an attacking way. So it's much like you would build a relationship in marriage. You would build a relationship with your teenager. Honor them, show them respect as well. And if they do not respect you, you address that. If they slam the door, you address that, but you address it in a respectful way. So you don't just let things slip and build up and then explode, because that's what they do. So what you do is you rather come and you address things slowly and surely, and then you balance them with fun and with other things, and with nice ideas. And what I'd like to do with them is, once we've spoken about it and we've forgiven each other and we've hugged and kissed and we've expressed our affection, then it's over. Then we move on, and we've made a plan and we've said, okay, this is how it's going to happen, or this is the consequence, and I follow up on the consequence. And then I treat them as normal, and we go on as normal, and we love each other, and we have fun, and that releases the pressure. Another thing is that if you are reasonable, sometimes I've been very unreasonable, especially when I'm stressed or upset, then I can just be too strict, or at least my wife balances me there. You can be over emotional and then have emotional talk like they would do. So you would be saying nasty things, judging them, giving them names, blaming, shaming, naming. Once you find yourself going there, you need to stop yourself, withdraw, calm down, and then go and do that apology thing. But I have found that if I can build a relationship with them in the way that I talk to them, that is the key, and that is how I handle the situation. So once you've built that relationship with your child, it is about that daily involvement in their lives as well. And it's also about their involvement in your life. So it's also about them not just being self-centered, because that's how they are when they're teenagers. They're naturally self-centered. The universe revolves around them, the selfies. So, and it's about them, when you share your heart, you can ask them, I'd like to talk to you about something. And it doesn't mean that you are offloading all your burdens on your teenagers. Just sometimes you're allowing them to also show empathy. They've also got to show care to you as well, here and there. So, and to their siblings and to other family members or other people. So how do you do that? We ask them, you tell them, what do you feel when you hear this story? What do you think of that? What do you make of that? If you were in their position, how would you feel? Things like that. Just an interesting one the other day, my daughter was, she would get into, if she feels this is right, and then she's going to debate me on it. So what I then say to her is calm down, talk to me in a calm voice. I would like to listen to you. But then, then I asked her, when she threw me all kinds of arguments, I said, okay, if you were your own child one day or in 20 years' time when you have a child, what would you as a parent do? So I just role reversed, and that she just started laughing and said, no, okay, I would also do like you're doing, but I don't want to do this now. So then she laughed and she accepted it. So it's also about, using intelligence. But if there's unfinished business, you need to go back and resolve that. Now, if you're the single mother, just to get back to that, and you've got that child with you, it's important that your relationship is there. And if they do not respect you, that's where you need to get professional help as well, because it's not always easy. So we want to get to a place where you both can talk freely to each other, where your feelings are heard and understood, and where you can laugh about little stuff, big stuff, where you're comfortable to talk about the tough stuff as well. And where they can come to you. If they come to you and they're at the place where they can actually come and confess their sins, as it were, then you know that you've reached that. There's a trusting relationship. So what I like to do is I like to just sporadically, or just give them love by touching, by words, by gifts, by all throughout the day, little ways of showing love. And all of that builds their emotional bank account, so that when you make the withdrawals or when you do the wrong things as well, that it is a balanced account. So it's also about them knowing that you're really interested and they can come and talk to you. What I've heard from teenagers is they don't want to talk to parents who jump on their backs and blame them, or who's going to overreact. They want to talk to parents who would like to listen and who will be reasonable and honest, but still be fair and still be just. Because you need to be just. They do need boundaries and they do need the consequences. So it's not wrong to do all those things, obviously, but it's all just in the how you do it. Yes, so your teenager needs freedom and responsibility, and it's about making sure that they actually grow up as persons who take responsibility for their own lives, and all of those things are part of it. But your key to them is that relationship. So it is how you talk to them, how you deal with them. It's important when you do talk to them, you don't want to do the following. So you want to not interrupt them and your own distractions. You want to actually give them your eye contact, give them your ears, turn your body towards them, listen to them as you would do in marriage. If you're going to jump in with advice or preaching or blaming, I told you that was not going to, or that finger, that's just going to elicit a lot of hostility. And if you're going to judge what they're saying, their point of view quickly, you're just going to jump on them. That's also going to create a lot of resentment and distance. Or you're going to interrogate them with firing questions at them in a shouting way. No, that's not going to work. So calm down, be genuinely interested in them and what they're telling you. Give them your undivided attention. Show them that understanding. When you think to yourself, if I was in their position, how would I act? And try not to give instructions or unsolicited advice just at first. Later on you can give recommendations. And that's now if they come to you with some problem, and choose a quiet place where. And then another thing is, if you do discipline them, try to not shame them in public. Try to, the other evening we were at a restaurant and I felt like I had to now address this issue. So I stood up and I went to her and I said, please come with me. And we walked away and then we talked. So that was not embarrassing them, because that's a huge thing in front of everybody. So it's rather go and talk to them there, and then I used to come down like a ton of bricks, but then saying, I've noticed that, or I've seen that. And another thing, if they need to make decisions, it is important that they need to make decisions. It's important that you actually help them to develop that decision-making ability. Usually in the way I grew up, it was either one or two extremes. Either you're being told what to do or there's no interest. So it's rather one of, look, On the health and safety ones, we're going to help you make decisions, but we want to talk you through these things, and we want to help you to develop the greater thinking ability, the critical thinking, so that you can be practical in how you're going to make decisions. So it is being involved, listening, understanding, caring enough, and then also asking them, what do you want? What do you not want? What do you think is the pros? What are the cons? And if you, especially helping them to make decisions, it's if you're going to control them and you're going to tell them all the times what to do, and you're being unreasonable and you don't want to listen to their needs, then what's going to happen is they're going to rebel and find another way to get their needs met. So it's about rather giving them that space and saying, look, you can make the decision, and let's talk about this decision. How did you make the decision? How did it fare? Did it go okay? Did it not go okay? What was my rule there? And did you break? Why did you break the rule? If you're not going to come home at 10 o'clock, what do you think would be reasonable for me to do there? So it's rather a different way of talking. So I call it the home approach as opposed to the court approach. So they're not in court, they're at home. And you'd like to then help them to think about what they've done so that they can see action and consequence, so they can have that, what we call